It's Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, so you know what that means. It's time for another episode of #Event Icons, presented by Endless Events, the show where you get to ask the icons of the events industry anything. So, you might be wondering, how do you get to ask questions? All you have to do is use the question panel on the right of GoToWebinar to submit your questions. Or you can hop on Twitter to submit your questions with the #Event Icons. We'll be answering your questions live during the entire show. Before we get started, the more people we have watching, the better conversation we can have. So please help share #Event Icons on Twitter and Facebook. Just tell your friends to watch at www.event-icons.com. Now, without any further delay, this is #Event Icons with your hosts, Will Curran of Endless Events, Laura Lopez of Social Tables, and Brant Kruger of Event Technology Consulting.
That's great. That's great. That's probably the best one we've ever done.
By far the best one. So, Laura, what is going on today?
Well, Will is in DC. Welcome, Will.
Woo! Doing this live from the Social Tables office?
Yeah, live and in person. First time ever.
Yes.
And you have a big conference or a big event happening here in DC.
Oh, I don't know if anyone loves this game as much as I do, but we're doing a big Minecraft show here in DC, so I am here hanging out with Laura, getting some work done at the Social Tables office, and came to hang out, and we figured why not record this episode live and in person?
Why not?
Why
the heck not?
So what's the topic that we have for today, Laura?
The topic of today's show is how to choose your first event app, which is great. We have a lot of planners who watch the show, and they're in the market for some event technology, so we have some awesome guests. If you're looking for event technology and you have all these burning questions you've never known who to ask, now is your time. So without further ado, Will, do you want to introduce?
I will introduce our amazing guests. Who both live in my hometown of Phoenix, Arizona, which is ironic because I'm not there right now. But we are joined by Jared Bodnar of Attendify, who's going to be giving us a lowdown on how to choose your first event app, how to make sure that you're doing all the right things and everything like that. And Mr. Tony Calvis, who is joining us from Nextiva, who actually produces NextCon, which is an awesome conference. If you get a chance, Google NextCon, also in Arizona, and you'll get to see some amazing names. This year they are going to have Tony Hsieh. We're going to have one of my favorites, Neil Patel, speaking. Really, really awesome conference coming up, so definitely check that out. But we're going to be getting their perspective from the client side as well as the app provider side as well. And so why don't we just jump right on in?
Yeah. Awesome.
Oh, well, first, welcome, guys. Yeah. I didn't even give you guys.
It's good to be here. Good to be here.
So yeah, let's jump right in. I'm full of talking today.
So we always like to open every episode with the very same question, which is, what got you into the events industry? So Jared, we'll start with you.
So early in my career, I started working at a B2B marketing agency, and I was on the client side in a lot of cases. So we were an exhibitor for several of our clients. We helped them with their booth design and fabrication and all the activities in their booth and giveaways and contests and everything that they wanted to do. And then I actually moved away from the agency life and got into the software as a service business and just ran marketing teams for software companies. And I decided to join Attendify because I thought it'd be interesting to go on the other side of the event business where the event organizers and event planners were. And I absolutely love it. I love the event industry. I think it's just full of great ideas, and it's all about connecting people, and I just absolutely love being in the event industry.
That's awesome. And we're always curious to know, if you were in the events industry, what would you be doing?
I guess I'd be
to the marketing?
Yeah, probably. I'd probably be working in like a technology company in marketing, or I'd just drop out of society and be kind of a philanthropist, philosopher, author, traveler type. Ooh, maybe something like that.
Curious. I like it.
That sounds fun.
Sure.
Awesome. What about you, Tony? So tell us a little bit about what got you in the events industry and what, how NextCon ended up happening.
So I'm a video producer for Nextiva, which provides business cloud communications, and they decided that there weren't any good business conferences that, were around where they can get actionable items from and good takeaways and where you feel good leaving them. So that was kind of my thrust into large-scale events like that. So, I wouldn't say that I necessarily chose that direction, but I will say that as a filmmaker, there are very many similarities between hosting an event and actually, putting together a film. So, I feel like there are so many parallels I can talk to regarding events. So, yeah.
Awesome. I love it. And I think, especially in Phoenix as well, there's definitely, I think, some business conferences really need to step up their game. And I think you guys are doing a great job leading it for sure. Yeah, I'm actually really excited for your guys' conference this year.
Well, Tony, what would you do if you weren't in the events industry?
No, we didn't. We didn't.
Uh,
I mean, like, filmmaker?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, wherever my talents can help people most, that's what I tend to go for. So,
Do you have
yeah.
any hidden talents or anything crazy like that we don't know of?
I'm very good at working under a lot of stress and with a very tight schedule. So events are kind of a perfect fit for me.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're born in events. Like, we should never even asked you that question. You're trapped here forever. You're not gonna be leaving the events. You want to go ahead with the first question that we have?
Yeah. So again, the theme for today's show is how to choose your first event app. And so what are some of the reasons why a planner would even want to use an event app at their event? Like, what are some of the benefits? I guess this time, Tony, we'll start with you.
So for me, I didn't really know much about event apps until I actually went to an event that had an app. So I had that firsthand experience, and you don't realize that you're missing it when you're at a conference or whatever, but as soon as you do have it, it just becomes a necessity. The event that I attended was they were maybe 400 people in the conference, but having that event app really opened up the experience and my ability to know more about what's going on in different places and connect with people. And yeah, so it might have been a little early to have known that we needed an event app for NextCon, but because I went to that one conference and saw how effective their app was, that just totally sold it for me.
Ooh, interesting.
That's interesting.
I like it. Like, you don't know you need it until it's gone.
It was a big wave that just came over, and I mean, we're like, well, shit, why didn't we think of this prior? Sorry, I forgot. I don't know if I can swear on this yet, but
you're totally good. You're totally good. We literally have an episode called "Shit Event Planners Say" coming up in a couple weeks, so you're good.
Perfect.
Fun.
Awesome. Jared, you want to go ahead with why you think that an event planner would want to use an event app?
So a lot of our event planners want to save paper, save money on paper. They print this huge event guide, and we can turn that into an event app. But I think a lot of event planners want to guide the experience of the attendee and kind of help them get to where they need to go with, like, schedules and maps and things like that. But anymore, I think people today, most people have a mobile device on them, so they refer to that a lot, and they're looking to connect to other attendees, and that's one thing that event apps could do. It can help people network and communicate with each other. A lot of them nowadays have an activity stream where they can post photos, and the attendees can really, get connected and build relationships on the app. So yes, it's to kind of digitize the event guide, but I think it's also to connect the attendees and help them build stronger relationships.
Awesome. I think I had a good follow-up question to this. Do you think there's ever a case, when we talk about why you should use an event app, but do you think there's ever a case where someone shouldn't use an event app? Like, have you ever seen any events where someone comes to you and says, hey, or maybe you've attended an event where you've been like, yeah, the event app didn't really help or it wasn't needed in any sort of way. What about you, Jared?
Yeah, we see people say, well, my audience is not tech savvy. They don't really have mobile devices. They don't communicate that way. So if they're not a tech savvy audience, that may not be a good fit. For us, the fact that ours is very socially enabled, we have a private social network where people can post photos and comment and like and so forth. It doesn't really work with huge events. So like 10K plus attendees. If the event is huge, a lot of the activity stream just gets cluttered and it's a lot of noise, and it makes it hard for people to network and connect with each other because the event is just so massive.
Oh, interesting. So I never thought about that. Maybe like a meditation retreat or something like that, where they're not supposed to be on their phones anyways.
That'd be a perfect one. Yeah, I've known people to like have meetings and like, we're gonna put all of our mobile devices in the middle in the little bucket, and then we're
you put it in like a basket, like check your guns at the door kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that would definitely not be good for an event app.
Yeah.
Tony, do you think there's any cases where someone shouldn't have an event app at their event?
I was going to Jared had some great points. I was actually even thinking the other way around, where if the event is small enough that most attendees are already going to know those people and there's not that need for an introduction or a need to, fill up the activity feed with things that everybody around you already kind of knows about you. So it might just be finding that perfect medium of size, not too big, not too small, the Goldilocks size.
I love it.
Cool. Goldilocks size. I like that. I'm gonna steal that. So Jared actually touched on something that was that leads me to my next question. Is if you have objections from a client that says, hey, we're just not really into event technology. They're just kind of averse to it, but maybe you see a really good opportunity for the client. How do you convince them otherwise that, like, yeah, maybe actually you guys do need an event app? Here's the reasons why. Like, how do you kind of get to that kernel to really get them to understand why they need an event app?
I think it comes down to what type of event it is and who the attendees are, who the sponsors are, kind of what the event looks like. I mean, some people don't think they need one, but in a lot of cases, some of our customers, they use us and they're like, oh, we didn't really know what it was going to do, but it kind of took off on a life of its own. It was really successful. So one thing that we do actually, so if a lot of people are, a little bit afraid of technology and event technology, and especially the fact that ours is a build your own app. You go up and you create your own app online. So one thing we do is sometimes we just take all of their content from their event website and we build them a demo app. We build them a sample app and send it to them and say, hey, we built an app for you, and all you have to do is build on top of this in our builder. So that kind of like gets them over that hump. It's not like a blank canvas. We kind of pull all that information in, show them how the schedule works, so show them how the speaker listings work, and the maps and things like that. So they kind of get over that hump, and then getting into the builder and seeing that it's a really easy step-by-step process and it's only 5 steps makes it really easy for them to kind of build the rest of it and see how it will work at their event for their attendees and their sponsors.
That's very cool. I love like the build your own event app thing, because I mean far too often everyone thinks, oh, I have to hire this massive company to build this expensive app that I have no ability to edit or change it.
Right.
Oh, it gives them a lot of control.
Yeah, and then also I think when you're selling, because we come from the SaaS, software as a service world too, giving them kind of like a demo environment to just see what it looks like versus, they sign the contract and they're like, what is this app? This app looks nothing like what I imagined it would. So I think that's actually a good way to kind of set, like planners especially, maybe that's something that you can ask, and a little pro tip is if they can set up a demo environment for you, just so you can kind of see what potentially your event app will look like. Now, Tony, my question for you that's a little bit related is, were there any event stakeholders who said, you know what, we don't need an event app, it's too expensive, we'd rather spend the money somewhere else, or was it relatively easy to get people on board with the idea of launching an event app for NextCon?
It was It was relatively easy, but I'll admit too that we also had an ability to build a demo app before we purchased. So, I went online and got through Attendify built a working NextCon app that I could show people. And once they saw their name stamped on there, the functionality. I mean, and so you just look at what it takes to get your ROI. It's a very easy sell at that point, because it also opens you up to getting, more money because you have an opportunity to show sponsorships, and so that it opens up a lot of opportunities that you wouldn't have had otherwise, and it becomes a very easy sell very quickly.
Ooh, very interesting. And yeah, I think that the idea of using a demo environment, maybe you want to get your event or someone high up at your event to switch over to using the event app. Yeah, maybe give them a little bit of a hands-on opportunity could be huge.
Yeah, when they see how powerful these apps are, and really at a relatively low cost. I mean, most apps are going to be under what it would normally take to build your own app. So once you show that it's really only a fraction of the time to set up, and we're going to make it back on day one, it's definitely worth considering.
I mean, let me know if this is, feel free to use more vague numbers if you'd like to, Jared. But, to give people an idea, what does it, like, maybe I have this expectation of what an event app costs. What can people expect from a provider like yourself or something similar in terms of savings by doing the build your own model? And not necessarily build your own as in hire a developer to build it, but use a platform that can kind of put the building blocks together for you.
Yeah, so because ours is a platform and it's really scalable, people can go up and create a free account, build their entire app for free, and then only pay for it when they publish it. It is much less expensive than hiring someone to build your own app. So our one single app fee is $999 all in. And then if you have multiple events throughout the year, it's like $2,000 for your first event for the year, and then each additional event is $499. So super affordable for an event organizer. I mean, sometimes you'll pay more than that on printing a program.
Totally. Wow. Yeah. Absolutely. That's what I was going to say as well. That definitely the alternative, which is not to have an event app, would be definitely way more expensive. So speaking of not having an event app or the alternative, what sort of features if someone's looking to get their first event app, can an event app do that maybe in the past they haven't been able to do before? That just being in person, a physical printed out notebook, or a map on a wall. What sort of things are these event apps able to do? Let's start with Tony. Like, what sort of awesome things were you able to do that you weren't able to do now that you had an event app?
So probably the most important thing for us was that we could notify everybody of a change in schedule or room or whatever. So having that flexibility to be fluid at the event instead of trying to spread the word via people walking around telling people no, go this way, no, go that way. Having that in the event app right there, one click and we just told our entire audience that something changed or that they should check something out that we didn't think to notify them of beforehand. So it really, that flexibility is probably one of the most critical things for us at the actual event.
Awesome. Very cool. That's it's so simple yet so powerful.
Right.
Awesome. Jared, but what about you? What sort of features do you think are very powerful that now someone would have their first event app versus before having no app?
Yeah, I think the first thing is if you have a printed program, it's outdated by the time it's printed. There's already been changes made. So the fact that you can go into our dashboard and have unlimited updates and immediate updates without any sort of loading screen or progress bar or anything, I think is really, really powerful. Also sponsored ads. So in our activity stream, you can have sponsored posts that you can use to generate more revenue for sponsorships. And also polling, quick polls where you can say, hey, how's this session? How's the overall event? That sort of thing. It's just those small touches that you can't do with a printed guide, but you can certainly accomplish with an event app.
So one polling actually just sparked something in my head. So I know that a lot of event apps have analytics that are really, really handy for planners for when they plan future events, or if they, are planning next year's event or something that's similar. And I guess we'll start with you first, Jared. What are the ways that a planner can use the analytics that come from an event app? What are some of those indicators, and how can they kind of use that to their advantage for future events?
Yeah, I think the basics are really important. So how many people are downloading the app, how many sessions people have in the app, what are the most important and popular sections in the app, mostly scheduled, by the way, for the most part. But I think once you have that data, you can use it to help promote your future events. And you can find, through the social activity, you can find out what content people are interested in, what photos they're posting, what comments they're making, etc. You can see all of that data and information, and just overall sentiment, like how are they liking the overall event. You can have session ratings and speaker ratings and reviews and that sort of thing, so you can gather really good feedback on your speakers and your content directly from the attendees. So all of that data you can use to promote future events, and also just look at the makeup of your attendees and the overall conversations, and kind of take a pulse of the overall event through all of the activities that they're doing in the event app.
Ooh. I was gonna ask. I'm really curious to hear what Tony thought as well. Like, what sort of analytics were helpful for you when you got done with the first event, which you had the app. What sort of stuff was like, oh my gosh, like mind blowing to you?
Well, first off, we didn't really need to wait until the end of the event to get some great analytics. I mean, even Jared and his team were kind enough to come out to NextCon last year and kind of sit with me for a moment and take a look at the analytics, make sure that everybody was engaged, everybody was getting where they needed to go. But really, just the sheer amount of interactions people had is the most surprising thing on our end. And this even went back before the conference. We were 3-4 weeks out, I think, and we were already seeing people post in the app, and they were getting excited. They were excited to see certain speakers. They were connecting with other people, planning to meet on day one when they got there. That's very exciting to see. In terms of the analytics side, though, it was just interesting to see how people wanted to become celebrities in the app. With a lot of these apps have like leaderboards or whatever based on their engagement in the app, and you see these people trying to top one another, and so they're all in just trying to be the most be the loudest voice in the app, and so that was really nice to see, because that experience that they had on the app ties directly with our conference, and we didn't do a thing. That was all them.
Was there any incentive, like, to being on the top of the leaderboard, or was it purely just a leaderboard?
I think we're going to try it this year, because we didn't know how it was going to go last year. That was our first run at an event app, but now that we've seen how much people take to it, it's definitely motivating us to think more about prizes or opportunities that we can open up.
Well, I was gonna say, it's funny that you mentioned the gamification, the leaderboard side, because one of our amazing partners in Event Icons, Alex Plaxton with Little Bird Told Media, did live tweeting from Inbound Conference. I know he's laughing right now in the background, but there was a leaderboard for who could tweet the most and who could get the most engagement. And of course, Alex is the master Twitter and won that competition. But if you GameFi put a little incentive into it, even just as simple as having a leaderboard apparently drove a huge amount of engagement, which is just really, really cool, and I find that very awesome.
Yeah. And that actually brings us to a question that we got in from the audience. So how do you combat spamming in the activity feed with a leaderboard? So, Jared, you were talking about how, if an event is too big, maybe that lends itself to spamming. I mean, how would you advise a customer on, you know, kind of how to combat that live at an event?
People just posting for points, essentially.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that for the most part, it's all in good fun. I mean, you see people kind of just going in and liking everyone's content, and they kind of know what the scoring criteria is because we publish that in our app, so they know how to game it, if you will. So I think it's on a case-by-case basis. If it gets to be sort of abusive or people are just posting messages, you can definitely send them a direct message and say, hey, knock it off, or you can send them a push notification down to the actual attendee level. Or you can just moderate comments. You can just go in the dashboard and say, yeah, we're just going to hide all of the these spam posts. But I think it makes sense to directly reach out to whoever is trying to just, you know, game the gamification system, and just let them know, hey, we appreciate the spirit of what you're doing, but could you do it a little more organically?
And Tony, did you run into that issue at NextCon where there were people who were trying to just spam the leaderboard in order to get to the top, or they're going to spam their way to the top?
He's laughing because he totally did it.
Yeah, he was trying to win the non-existent prize. But did you run into that at all?
Luckily we didn't really. I mean, we certainly had the front runners who were, you know, doing their best to be as engaged in the app as possible, but everything that they were doing was pretty much promoting, you know, whatever bit of the event that they were at. So it worked to our favor more so than spamming the newsfeed, just because, you know, they post a picture of the lunch that we served and said, you know, hey, this looks amazing, you know, come find me at lunch or whatever if you want to chat, you know. So things like it was very much things like that as opposed to just messages for messages' sake. But yeah, I mean, maybe it went on and I didn't even know about it, so who knows?
I love it. So while we're kind of take a step back into maybe like a 10,000 feet view, so someone's decided, I'm ready to have an event app, I want to have one. You know, what should people be looking for when it comes to choosing their event app? You know, how do you even go about figuring out, where do you start? Where do you, like, let's even take it further back. How do you find the type of event app? So obviously people have heard of Attendify because they're watching the show, but you know, let's say they're looking to look at the top 10 list. You know, what sort of things should people be Googling? How should they start their search? And let's start with Tony. Like, how did you guys start your search and find out about Attendify eventually? But what sort of things were you looking for, and how did you start that search?
So we found Attendify via the conference, the first conference I was at. They used Attendify for their conference, but really, I mean, I think it's twofold. Number one, I'm a strong believer in finding people who are smarter than you and taking them to coffee. So, you know, find the people that have done this before, take them to coffee, and, you know, get their opinion, because getting those, you know, seasoned people will be the best defense. People that you trust. That'll be the best defense to avoiding bad apps. And secondly, I mean, playing around with it yourself, especially in a demo environment. Nextiva is really big on the customer experience. We have our amazing service as our motto, but you know, when I look at an app, I want to know if my experience is good. You know, am I running into bug after bug after bug? Am I, you know, missing features that I feel should intuitively be there? Things like that will tell me immediately if an app is worth pursuing or not. So, you know, that was what led us to Attendify, and sticking with Attendify was that, you know, they had a great experience on the app.
Interesting. Well, Tony, just kind of follow up on that. Did you ever get worried before you obviously got into the demo environment that when you want to invest in an event app that someone would have to develop it and therefore you're spending the money before you even get a chance to use it?
Maybe I'm a little lucky that I have some. I've been a computer geek for a little while, so, you know, it wasn't too big a deal for me to set up. Whereas, you know, if I were to put my father on the task, that would be another story. But you know, so maybe I just took that for granted. But I felt that, you know, looking at it, just looking in the demo environment, it was very easy to figure out. Yeah.
Awesome. Jared, what would you recommend to someone who's looking can start that search for the first time? What should they be looking for? How do they start that search?
Yeah, I would recommend, I agree wholeheartedly with Tony. I think ask around, ask your peers, people that you respect. I think that's a great way to do it. Find out what other people are using, what their experience has been, etc. I also believe you should go online and look for reviews, for product reviews. I think, I mean, most all event app providers are on like Capterra or G2 Crowd or GetApp or even Facebook or other websites. So it's really easy for you to kind of go up there and find out what the experience was for others in more of an organic way than just like Googling event app, for example. But yeah, I would say, you know, definitely look at reviews, definitely look at what other people are doing in the industry. And I just believe, like, get in there. Like, if you can, if there is a builder, just get in there and start building. Check it out, see how the process is, because if it's a difficult process of building the app, it's probably going to be a difficult process of managing the app. So I'd say, yeah, just get in there and get your hands dirty and start building.
Right.
I like the GetApp thing, by the way. I recently discovered, I love those sites because they're a great like list to kind of start with, but recently found out that GetApp has a really great feature. I mean, this is just not even an app really, but if you're looking for your next CRM or whatever next tool you're going to use, it has a cool feature that lets you choose that says integrates, and then you can type the software you want to see if it integrates, and it lists out all the software that integrates. So I was looking for basically like a referral management software that integrates with HubSpot. I Googled, found the category, and I said integrates with HubSpot, and it listed out all of them. Very, very cool. So
that's awesome.
Software nerd world.
And same for like a CRM. I know that a lot of planners are using Salesforce or some CRM so that they can track who's actually, you know, a customer, who's at the event. I would imagine, Tony, this would be probably great for your app, is understanding like who's a non-customer, who's a customer, like who's in the crowd. And I'm sure there are planners who have, you know, like business events that they're hosting and probably want to know like who's in the room. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, could actually, I mean, beyond, is that a question? Because I think that's a great question, though. I mean, like,
integration. I mean.
Well, I was gonna say not necessarily integrations, but like, as a feature of an event app. You know, as a business, let's say they're creating a business event and they're hosting their customers. Did you guys utilize the app to be able to help sales in any sort of way, or to be able to better understand, you know, who's at the event, who's active, that are potential customers, or things like that?
You know, we didn't really do it for lead gen, or you know, it was in a banner like at the bottom of our site. You know, so we definitely led people to that, but I don't know that we ever used it as a selling point. Mainly because we, you know, didn't really know if it was going to be something that people would latch onto or not. So, you know, we had our surefire other selling points that you know, took precedent, but. I mean, I think that the event app is a really strong selling point, and also shows that the conference has been, you know, is modern and, you know, keeping up with the times. It helps demonstrate that, you know, you've put a lot of thought into a contemporary conference or event.
So, Tony, you hit on something. We have a question in from the audience, and I will take this moment. Thank you for everybody who's logged on. If you have a question for our presenters, please keep sending them through the questions pane.
Or on Twitter.
Or on Twitter.
With hashtag icons.
Yep, we do have Alex Flaxen in the background. So you brought up the fact that you weren't even sure if people are going to latch on to using the event app. So I guess maybe, can you give us some tips for event planners to help increase event app adoption between the attendees? So did you all do anything in particular at last year's NextCon to really like drum up the usage of the app?
So we had signage everywhere. You know, almost everything that we did end up printing had, you know, download the app, show the little icons so that when you get to the app store, you know what it looks like. Even on their badges with the lanyards and everything, on the back of their badges was another sign telling them to get the app. Really, every email talks about it. You just try to promote it in as many places as possible, and then once people do arrive, you're going to have those few people that did download the app prior, and you just kind of hope that they're your evangelists once they arrive, and they ask, you know, rather than handing a business card over, they say, hey, are you on the app? Or can I just find you through there? And suddenly that exchange can, you know, save them going into their wallet. It's a little bit easier for them, and so they automatically have a reason to promote it on their own.
And that's always so handy, because I'm always at an event where I run out of business cards, or
For sure.
worst case, which has happened, not proud to admit it, is where I've like completely forgotten my business cards at home.
Oh.
So it's so easy to just download the app, join the community if there's one,
Yep.
and then, you know, link it to your LinkedIn or what have you, and then just say, oh yeah, I'm in the app, you know, send me your contact information. So that's a good
people
pro tip if you ever forget your business cards.
Yeah, and people are proud of like their schedule. You know, I overheard one conversation where somebody was like showing another person, you know, look what keynotes I'm going to, and you know, they were both comparing what their schedules looked like. So you know, it's things like that.
That's cool.
Yeah.
The little things.
Mm-hmm.
Jared, what about you? What sort of ways have you seen people increase an event app adoption at their events?
So I've seen a couple things. One is people can seed content. So if people aren't posting on the activity stream, there's no photos, you know, there's not a lot of interaction, they can seed content and just like post some photos and post some comments and things like that and just get the conversation going.
So like the event themselves starts putting stuff into the feed directly, and
right.
Are they doing it as the event, like it says the event name, or are they like, for example, it'd be Laura Lopez posting, Will posting, like, sure, we work for the event, but it looks like we're attendees?
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Exactly. The other thing we see is contests. So if people have like a leaderboard, they can have contests and have prizes for like the top 3 or top 5 people on the leaderboard. That tends to work. Something that Nextiva did that was really interesting, which wasn't surrounding the app, was they had a charitable aspect of their event. They have a Nextiva Cares Foundation where they donate money to charities. And they said, hey, if you use the NextCon16 hashtag on Twitter, we're going to donate $5 to the Nextiva Cares Foundation, which is really cool. And even though it wasn't app related, it was a good way of getting people talking and posting and just getting that conversation going on Twitter, and all for a good cause. I thought that was fantastic.
Ooh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. I think you brought up slightly, a good point when we were talking a little bit about sharing contact information as well, and hopefully avoiding that. And let me know if you guys think that you have strategies behind doing this. But I think one of the reasons why some people dislike event apps sometimes is because their information gets digital, gets stored in a directory, and people get spammed with stuff. I mean, obviously it can happen offline by getting someone's business card. They can just enter into the CRM. But some people say, hey, it's just easier access to data. How do you have any sort of strategies that prevent people, or not even prevent, but just discourage it?
Yeah. And like data security, I know is that can be maybe a sub-question, but just, what do you do to safeguard the information and make sure only the people who want their information out there have access to it? So.
Yeah, so there's a couple things we do. One is you can have a password protected event app. So everyone who is registered, you have to register with your email address that you registered for the conference with and create a password. So only those folks can access the event app. If it is an open public event app that everyone or anyone can register for, in a lot of cases, in our case, you can share as much information as you want. I mean, I tend to just go out there, connect my LinkedIn profile, so it brings in my photo, it brings in my my name and my job title, but it doesn't bring in my email address, it doesn't bring in my phone number, so none of those contact details are in there, but people know who I am, they know my job title, so they can reach out to me through a direct message in the app if they want to.
Very cool. That makes sense. Like almost put it on, give the ability for the attendee to limit the data, because some people are cool with giving out all their information, but that's obviously the risk with it. Very, very cool. So the next question that I had for you, whether, when people are starting, obviously they've started the search, they started talking to the event app companies. what sort of questions would you recommend someone ask to help them narrow down a decision whether or not to go with that company? What sort of things are you telling them to look for? So Tony, if you want to kind of kick it off, like you obviously got a chance to play in the demo environment, to do a lot, maybe even before you talk to a sales, like little miles of questions that you had to secure, hey, we're going to work with them. What sort of questions were you asking? What sort of question would you recommend that someone ask in order to choose?
So I'm more the tinkerer type, where I just like to find out the questions myself and, see how hard is it for me to find the answer, because, if it is too difficult, then, it's probably either not there or, it's going to lead to our attendees having the same problem because they won't have the opportunity to have that reach out to the company. What was important to me for the app or for the company that we chose is, can I test first? Because, that my opinion of this is going to play a big part in this. So I need to be able to work with it and see how I feel with it. And otherwise, really just having a platform that the attendees can make the experience their own. Having that ability to put a unique perspective in every single person's hand while they're at our conference, and they could be one of 2,000 people, but somehow that conference is very unique to them, and their experience through our app. So those are kind of the most important things I would require of any event app if I were looking across multiple ones.
Awesome. Awesome.
Hopefully that answered the question.
Definitely does. Jared, what about on your end? What sort of questions would you expect someone to be asking you if they were to choose, to be working with you?
Yeah, I mean, there's a ton of questions. I would want to know what the process looks like. Like, is it a build your own process, or are we working with some sort of developer? What does the review cycle look like? What is the back and forth?
Can you explain what the review cycle, what that means?
Meaning, like, are you presented with the app and then you give them a bunch of changes and they go back into the laboratory and make all those changes and come back to you with something else? Like, how does that process work? How does that interface work? And what's the timeline? Because in a lot of cases, these event apps are built and it's not on the timeline of the attendee, it's on the timeline of all the different projects that the event app company has. So, and I'm also a big fan of references and negative references. Ask an event app provider to say, hey, do you have someone that used you before and they don't use you anymore? Because I think that will give you a good feel for what some of the challenges have been and what kind of things that would cause someone to really be a customer and then actually look elsewhere.
Interesting. It's like the negative reviews on Amazon. Like, check those out, because sometimes that's more insightful than the person who's giving it 5 stars.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. And I think going back to something Laura said, I think it's data reporting requirements. Like, what are your data reporting requirements? What data are you going to get back? What formats that data is going to be in? Is it a big Excel dump, or is it something you can go in and manipulate, like some sort of a dashboard? I think that's really, really important to ask on the front end that not a lot of people think of.
Yeah. Well, we have a question, speaking of data, we have a question in from the audience. Are you able to use the data from the app to do one-to-one marketing for future events? So I guess you were mentioning, a question that a planner should ask is, how is the, all the analytics and the data, how is that presented to you? So, I mean, I guess from the view of Attendify, how is data given back to the planner? And are they able to do that one-to-one marketing for future events? Like, do they have the contact information? I think you kind of answered it a little bit earlier, where some of it might be password protected, but how are they given, how do they receive their data after the event?
Yeah, so you can export the data if you want in like an Excel or some sort of a CSV file, and we have an integration with Salesforce, so data can be pushed back and forth that way. But we are working on a new platform, kind of an analytics platform, that's going to allow people to use that data in a little more effective way and help connect that data to other marketing tools and other event tools that they work with.
Tony, how did you guys use the data after with the event app after the con? Did you guys did you guys utilize that data then start marketing people for the next year? What did you guys do?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, we had a lot of emails already going into the event just through ticket sales, but you know, we were able to look at the attendee information from inside the app and even get more information that we didn't necessarily ask them for during registration. But one thing that this is sort of on the data side, but through Attendify, we were also able to download every single image that people had uploaded to the app.
Oh,
So
wow.
we downloaded all those images, and this year we put together a little save the date video using those images.
Cool.
So, you know,
That's a great idea.
this commercial promoting the next NextCon uses images that people shot while they were there the previous year. So, you know, that was kind of a creative way we took media from the app and, you know, used it to promote this year.
That's awesome. I think that's so clever because I mean, like little effort, right?
Yeah.
Download images.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, obviously you're a video guy, but I mean, you could throw it into an iMovie even and create a quick slideshow, speed it up,
Yeah.
and you're good to go. I absolutely love that. I mean, very low effort, high yields for sure.
Yeah, no, but it was a lot of fun, and we actually printed out the photos, so they weren't even digital. We just printed them out and had kind of a cool overhead desk video, and we just kept setting down the pictures, showing you know
no way.
this is where you were dancing, this is where you saw Steve Wozniak, this is where you know, and it was great.
Wow, so it was like a physical. Wow, very cool, very cool. Well, people dropping some marketing tips for people
Yeah,
on the
no,
event.
that is such a good idea. That's kind of like taking the online, bringing it offline, and then like back again. Oh,
Yeah,
that's cool.
very cool.
Yeah. So this question, I'm very interested to hear what both of you think about this one question. Say, for example, an event app doesn't live up to everything that it was promised. So say a planner chose one, you know, amazing app, and then they were super disappointed on event day. It happens. How can a planner make the best of the situation, either when they're live at the event and then after the fact? What should they do?
Let's go with Jared.
Yeah, let's start with Jared.
Jared's
Hot seat.
Wow, that's a tough one.
This has probably never, ever happened to you guys ever.
Well, I think at the event, you can, to me, I mean, you can probably identify where the problem is, right? I mean, if it's people aren't posting on the activity stream, there's solutions for that. If people are having a problem finding locations because of the map, it's because of that. I think it'd be really important, and they could work with our success team on this, of finding out what that problem is and maybe like making it the most of the other parts of the app, and maybe pointing people toward, you know, if the schedule's not working well, point them to the maps or the speaker listings or sponsors and things like that. So I think or if they're, like I said, if they're not using the activity stream, you can seed content there, like post some content and try to get the conversation going. I think it's all about like where the problem is. I mean, I don't think we've had any experiences where people are like, you know what, the whole thing was junk and we hated it and it was garbage. I think there's like one or two aspects that you can really hone in on and say, okay, let's see if we can either fix these or direct people toward other sections in the app that are more delightful and enhance the experience of the attendees.
Interesting.
So after the event happens and, you know, maybe the planner really wants to see a particular feature, how do they communicate with you all, and how do you communicate with your customers as to whether or not that change will happen, if it's coming down the line?
That's a great question too. We have a really good relationship with our customers through their customer success managers, and typically all the feedback on product features and things they'd like to see comes through that channel. The problem is we can't do everything. I mean, we really want to keep our app focused, and we do have a product roadmap that we're actually going to be publishing here in a week or so. And I think that will show our customers, wow, this is kind of where we're going in the future, and these are the features we're adding. But unfortunately, we're not able to add everything. Sometimes there are features that customers ask for that that are not part of our roadmap and don't make sense for the app. So we've got to give them a really polite no.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I like the polite no though, versus like I've had so many software companies that say, yeah, we'll totally do that for you. 4 years later, you still haven't done that. So, Tony, what about you? Like, obviously, you guys had a great success and a great experience working with Jared and the team. But you know, do you have any feedback as far as what you would do as a planner if things weren't working out right? I mean, obviously, you said that hey, Jared and them came down on site to just add awesome experience to it. But would you have called up the event app company and said, "Hey, get down here right now"? Like, what have you done?
I mean, I've learned a lot about preparation and how important that is. So, for me, going into an event or, getting on set or whatever, if I run into a problem, it's most likely because I haven't prepared something or I haven't thought of it or tested it myself prior. So with our app, I mean, I felt so prepared just having worked with it and tested it with other people and, seeing the early response from attendees weeks before the event. Like Jared was saying, it probably is just one tiny little thing that can be fixed. And as soon as you can find that root, it doesn't look like this this impassable obstacle.
Awesome. Very cool. I love it. I love breaking it down. You guys make it sound so simple. I love it.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. I think we're getting towards the end of the show, so go into our last couple questions that we have. You want to get that? You want to
do that one?
Do you want to get? This is what happens. Usually we're like doing this over chat, and we will just message each other. But like, how do you do this when you are sitting right next to each other and can't talk?
Yeah.
You go for it.
Okay. So our second to last question is, if you could only pick one, what is your one tip for event planners that you could share? Only one tip. Tony, we'll start with you. What's your one tip you have for event planners?
Plan to sleep. Work harder earlier. Get a good pacing from the get-go because you're gonna need that sleep once the event actually gets closer. And I mean, I've gone to plenty of events where I didn't get enough sleep because I was working hard to make sure all the final details were, hammered out. And that's such a valuable resource. And if you don't have it, you're going to be making a lot more mistakes than if you had less time with more sleep.
Ooh, I like it. I think that's generally. I mean, I would just love to add on to that as well. I think we talked about this in the health episode, like 20 episodes ago. Check out the How to Stay Healthy Event Props episode. Awesome episode.
Kelly's episode.
Shout
out to Kelly.
And we talked a lot about how like event planners just love to lose sleep, and it's totally cool. It seems like the acceptable thing to do, but I love that you're saying that, and we're outside of like the realm of health just to talk about like, guys, get more sleep. So
I mean, on a personal level, I've even gotten promotions because someone who didn't sleep got in a car accident that one of the nights before we had to go on to an event, and suddenly, hey, Tony, you're on this now because the guy is in the hospital, so that's how important sleep is to me.
Absolutely. Get sleep, everyone. Don't want that happening.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Jared, what one tip that you have?
I would say that, and this might be a cliche, but I think that at an event, at least one thing is going to go wrong. Like, things are going to go wrong, but at least one probably big thing is going to go wrong. And it's all about how you deal with that thing and how you roll with that and solve that challenge that's going to dictate the success of the rest of the event. So yeah, that may be kind of a cliche, but
no, I think it's really good.
Yeah.
I think it's more about like the how you react to that one thing is ultimately I mean, so many people say like, hey, something's gonna go wrong, prepare for it, but like also how you can react to it as well. I love it. Well, on to our last question, my favorite question ever to ask, which is what favorite, new resources, cool resources, whether it's websites, blogs, books, gadgets, do you have to share with the audience? It can be literally anything, and we just feel free to dump a huge list on people. Let's kick it off with Jared, if you want to start with some of the cool resources, because I know you got a ton.
Yeah, so my favorite book on leadership is Multipliers by Liz Wiseman. She basically says people are either multipliers or diminishers as leaders, and it's a really great book. Blogs I like to read Texie Talk by Liz King or Liz Caruso, the eventmanagerblog.com by our friend Julius. I like to participate in the Expo chat on Twitter every Tuesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And some of the, I definitely like G2 Crowd, Capterra, GetApp for online reviews for business software, but also the Attendify blog, attendify.com/blog. We've got a really cool video about NextCon at attendify.com/customers/Nextiva. And we also have an ebook on how to choose an event app builder on our website.
Awesome. Can you describe like what that ebook's all about? Because I was really intrigued by that and hearing what that's about.
Yeah, so it just basically steps you through the process of, do you want to build your own or do you want to hire somebody else to build it? What questions you should ask, what features you should look for, pricing, and like data analytics you should be looking for, and what data reporting requirements you have, that sort of thing.
So if you made it through this entire episode and you want more, there you go. That's the place to go. Or, we'll just tell people to skip to this section and just check out the ebook. Tony, what about you? What cool resources do you have? Favorite apps that you're using now? Favorite cool gadgets, that sort of stuff?
So a great book that I love is Originals by Adam Grant. It came out maybe 2 years ago. But it's phenomenal on the data behind creativity, and I think that that's something that every event can utilize because there's a lot of studies behind what we think makes us more creative and what actually makes us more creative. So that's a fantastic book. I mean, Adam Grant is a great author. And then for blogs, all the sites Jared mentioned, we use G2 Crowd, Capterra, all that, but also Growth Hackers. They have a great community, and basically how it works is members of that community can submit articles that they find about, hacking growth in business. So no matter what walk of life you're in, as long as you're in business, you'll find very useful articles that way you're interested in. But outside of that, I mean, I just try to diversify what I look at. I don't strictly look at video. I don't strictly look at event stuff. I mean, I try to go beyond and find things that can blow my mind. I mean, like right now I'm reading Einstein's Relativity. It's anything I can do.
I almost wrote that down as a resource. Einstein's what's the name of the book?
Yeah, so I mean, I love finding, all the hidden treasures that I can, regardless of whether I can, understand it or relate to it.
I like it. Like
fascinating.
Pushing it outside of it. Awesome. Very cool. Laura, any cool resources that you have?
Yeah, I do. It's really random. It's an app called Meal Pal.
Ooh.
And essentially what it is if you're like me who always forgets to pack your lunch every day, basically pay a flat fee and they work out the pricing with all of these different restaurants. I can share a referral code. I got you. And you just pay a flat fee and you choose how many meals, and then the menu changes every day. So even if you go to the same sub shop or sandwich shop, their menu for that day changes, and so you just kind of select it and you reserve your meal, and they just go pick it up, and it's that's it. You don't pay anything.
Very cool. For the busy event professional.
Yes, for the busy event professional. I think it works across other cities, and I think they're expanding right now. So if I were to go to San Francisco, I don't know where to go to lunch. I have a Meal Pal account. I could just kind of hop on there and get my lunch. Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
Actually,
what about you?
I have two.
Okay.
I'll start with since we're talking a little bit more on the personal side of things. This is one that everyone's talking about, but Movie Pass. This is a huge news as the last 24 hours, but it used to be, I think you paid $50, $60 a month or whatever to get unlimited movies, but not on your TV, but in theaters. So you can go to any theater anytime for unlimited movies, like $56. Well, they just recently dropped their price to $10 a month. Obviously, they're designing the fact that they're going to lose money for people like Will, who go see every movie that comes out and everything, but absolutely huge getting news right now. Get it while you can, because their website is crashing literally because so many people are signing up for it. So definitely check out Movie Pass. My second one.
Okay. Yeah.
So this one will actually help, I think, for professionals versus just more time in movie theaters. But Nuzzle, which
we were talking about that. Yeah, I use Nuzzle too.
Which I think apparently I'm a little late on the boat on, but it's a very cool app that basically connect your Twitter and Facebook, and based on the number of friends who share an article, like for example, you can set a limit for at least 5 friends to share an article, it'll pop up and give you curated news based on what your friends are sharing. So we use BuzzSumo to kind of measure what articles are doing really well on different topics and things like that. But this is really cool real time to see, what are people sharing a lot on Twitter and Facebook. Very cool. It's in an app. It integrates with Slack, so it sends you notifications via Slack. Very awesome. So
very handy.
Awesome.
Well, that's our episode. Thank you to our guests. Jared Bodnar of Attendify and Tony Calvis from Nextiva/NextCon. Hope you have a great event. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to today's episode. The episode will be posted next Tuesday on the Endless Events blog. And that's it. We will see you next week where we will be interviewing another event icon at 5 p.m. Eastern. See you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you for joining us for another amazing episode of #Event Icons. To catch the transcription and all of the resources mentioned, head to www.helloendless.com/blog. This week's episode will be posted and available by next Tuesday. Also, let us know what you thought about this week's episode. Share your biggest takeaway and join the Twitter conversation sponsored by Alex Plaxton and Little Bird Told Media. Just tag your post with #Event Icons. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you again for joining us. We'll see you next Wednesday at 5 p.m. Eastern, right here on #Event Icons.